I think we're up to Daf Chov Beis Amud Aleph, right on the top, right? The Gemara yesterday said that the Chachamim told Rebbe Kiva, how do you ever find that you should be able to eat less than this year and be mechuyev? So the Gemara asked, "From Aberia," the Gemara asked. Let's test my audio, even though we're already in recording. Testing. I know I'm not sure. I think we're on the right thing. We're on 761. We're on the place we always are. Yeah. Usually David's always here. That's always my question. I'm not sure. I am not sure. No participants. No, we're on the right one. We are on the right one. Okay, let's go weiter. Dr. Gemara. Omar Lohen. So Rabbi Kiva answered back, you're telling me, where do you ever find that there should be an Isser Achila unless to the Kazayas? I'll ask you back, where do you ever see that merely speaking words will net a carbon? Shezevadaru may be carbon. Like this case, where he said, I'm not going to eat. And because of that, he's chayav a carbon. Are you really telling me that you could never be medaber maybe carbon? There's many examples of that. Hari megadev. Zokta Gemara, megadev's not a raya. Why? Because medaber va'oiser karminim. We're not just talking about someone whose speech is being mechayev him. We're talking about someone whose speech creates an iser, creates his chayvos. But the megadev is a medaber v'choyte. That's not a good example. A nazir is also mechayev himself through speaking. So medaber v'oiser b'diburei and it may be carbon b'yom taglachos. Right? So Gemara, we're saying maybe carbonai al diburei kamrinim. We're talking about somebody that he crossed what he said. He didn't fulfill what he said. He brings a carbon for that. Bahai and the Nazir may be carbon lishtaruya lecham Yehuda kamaisi. The reason why the Nazir brings the carbon is not because his dibur. It's just to be matter him to drink wine once again after his Nazirus is over. What about hektish? Rashi says shemedaber ve'oiser b'diburei es shehu makdish, and v'mhichlef diburei. If you violate and you know from what you were makdish, maybe carbon meila. Zok Gemara oiser la'atzmei karminim. We're talking about an isser that you're only answering for yourself. The high oiser al kol ha'olam kulahu. When you're being makdish something, you're answering something on kol ha'olam kulahu. Pray to Gemara, Hare Koinomos. What about Koinomos, which is a nether, which Rashi says, Shaloi Asra Ella Olav, it's only also to you. And V'im Achal Mimenu, and if you ate from what you were Koinoman, Kasol at this point in the Gemara holds, the maybe carbon me'ila. You would bring a carbon me'ila, Shakoinim Losh Natashu. So someone says Koinim Kikar Zalai, and he eats that Kikar, he has to bring a carbon me'ila. Rabbi Kiva hold ein me'ila b'kainamos. The like Karina and Bay Mikdashei Hashem. Me'ila is only by Mikdashei Hashem, not by Stam Kodesh. Sharei chulun hu eitzel kol adam. This is chulun for everybody else. If someone says Koinim Kikar Zalai, it's not also to everybody, it's only also to him. But if someone says Hekdasheh, it's also to everybody. Zok to Gemara. Hooray! The Amarava. So we went through all the different things where there is an ischayvis due to a dibor, but that's not a raya to our shaila of shul. Amarava. Machloikis pistam. This machloikis that we have between Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim as to whether or not you're chayiv if you violated a shvuah by eating less than a shear, That's only if when you made the Shavuah, you didn't specify an amount that you're referring to. So there's a machlokes if you're referring to a kol shehu or if you're referring only to a shear. Aval b'mefarish. But what if the neider said, the person who made the Shavuah said, I'm asking myself to eat even a mashu. So there, divrei hakoil b'kolshu. There, even the Rabbanan of our Mishnah agree that even a kolshu will violate the Shavuah. My timer. What's the reason? Because mefarish nami keber yodami. If you speak out, even a mashu, it's like beria, just like a beria. It's a davar choshev, and therefore, even though it's not a shear, but it's a complete item, such as an ant, right? So too, mefarish. There's actually a whole shaila when it comes to beria. What if you eat one full grape? Do you make a bracha achrona? Do you say beria there? It's a shaila if you'll say beria by a non-living item, like by a full grape. So the poskim say you should never eat just one grape. If you eat one grape, eat enough that it would for sure be a shear as well. Okay. Zok to Gemara of Amarava, machlokes b'shaloy. The machlokes that we're saying is when the Shavuah was that I will not eat, and then there's a discussion between Rebbe Kiva and the Chachamim how much you have to eat to violate. But what if the words that he used was aval b'shaloy etan? I won't even taste. There, divrei hakoil b'kolshu. There, everybody agrees that a taste even prohibits even a small little taste, even a kolshu, even if you didn't speak out of kolshu. Frank more pshita. Why do I need Rava to tell me that? That's pretty mufurish. Someone says, "Come, zatoyim epis." They don't mean they're going to give you a drop. They mean they're going to give you a whole meal. Kamash Malon, that with the Loshen Te'ima, when it comes to making a shvuah, the das of a person is always to aser even a mashu. Gevalti. Now is where it gets a little bit complicated. Amar Papa, machloikis b'shvuas. The whole machloikis that we had in our Mishnah between Rabbi Kiva and the Chum as to how much you have to eat when you swore not to eat. How much do you have to eat in order to violate your shvuah? That only applies to a shvuah. If someone said koinim ze alai, divrei hakoil b'kolshu, everybody holds that whatever you aser on you with a koinim is going to be aser even with a kolshu. My timer. What is the reason? So our Papa is saying a very big aside over here that our Mishnah's halacha only applies to shvuos, not koinot, and not to koinomis. Why? Because koinomis nami kiven the loy kamidkar shema da'achila. When you say koinomis, you don't say a word. You don't even mention the word achila. You say koinim ze'alai. Shavuah, you say shavuah sheloi oichel kikazeh. You're mentioning the word achila. But when you are prohibiting something on yourself because of a koinim, you're not even mentioning the word achila. Therefore, kedemafarish dami, it's as if you said beferish that you're answering even a mashu. That was the yisod of our papa. Break the Gemara akash on our papa. Meisvei. Shnei koinomois mitzdarfim. If you have two kikrais that you answered on yourself with a koinim, and you ate a half a gazais of one and a half a gazais of the other, it's mitzaref. So you right away you can see this will be a kash on our papa, because according to our papa, even a mashu is also what did he tear for, right? But shtei shavuos. But if you swore on two different kikarim that you're not going to eat them, they're a mitzarefus. If you ate a half a shear of one and a half a shear of the other, it will not be mitzaref. Reb Meir argues, and he says, "Kainamois kishvuos, they won't be mitzaref either." Fragt Gemara, "Visol kedaitach by a koinim that chayiv b'kol shu lamali litzaref." Why do chachamim need any type of tziruf? Each koinim, each pachas mikazais is already a shear. And for the Gemara, the case where the chachamim needed to tell you a chiddush that two koinomis are mitzaref is speaking the Amar Achila Mizu Alai Koinim Achila Mizu Alai Koinim. It's when he separated the two items and he said each one there should be upon me an Isser Achila due to a Koinim. Frank Gemara, if he separated them, he said I need to have an Achila from this guy. If I have to have a Achila from Kikar 1 to be over my Koinim, how could you be mitzaref the achila from kikar 2? Two separate things.
The whole reason of koinim is you don't use in lotion.
a normal expression of koyim, you don't use the word achila, but if you could use the word achila,
And that throws out the whole reasoning.
because you for sure need a shir. Right, right. That's why the discussion is if it's mitzaref. If you said achila mizulai, there everybody agrees that a koinim does require a shir achila, and that's why we're discussing if they're each mitzaref. So the Gemara says, of course, they're frankly my mitzaref. So why are they mitzaref? Soif zilahacha lekeshira, v'zilahacha lekeshira. He spoke on achila from each one. So how could you say that if between the two of them there was an achila? It would combine his issues b'dafka and achila on each one. He was mefarish, but mefarish the opposite. Mefarish that he does want to have a shir achila. Zokt Gemara, because he didn't say separately achila mizu alai and achila mizu alai. Rather, what he said was achila mishtein alai koyim, and the achila from both of them, who should be also to me, due to a koyim. So therefore, they'll be mitzaref. Frank Gemara. Okay, so we have to take exactly the same case, apply to Shavuos, and understand why it's not mitzaref. The kavasoga by Shavuos, the Amar Shavuos shaloi oichel mishtein. If you made one Isser, combining them both together, so amayim mitzaref. Why are Shavuos any different? So we're still stuck. Amar Apinchas, I'm going to tell you the difference. Shainu Shavuos, you know why Shavuos are different? Mitoich shechalukois l'chatois, since you would bring a separate chatos for each shear that you ate, ein mitzarfus, therefore they will not be mitzaref. Now this is a very profound expression in the Gemara, so let's see Rashi and how Rashi explains the uniqueness of Shavua b'tchuos l'chatois. Rashi, mitoich sheshtei kikros halalu, chashuva shtayim le'inyin chatos b'Shavuos. These two kikros, he said, I swear I will not eat from these two kikros. They are considered two separate kikros le'inyin achiv chatos due to the Shavuot. And now Rashi explains exactly what he means. Im Amar Shavuot shelo oichel mizu mizu. That was the case that we're discussing. Someone said, I'm not going to eat from these two kikros. And then v'ochel kazayis mizu, ukazayis mizu v'helam echad. And you ate a kazayis of kikar A and the kazayis of kikar B, b'shoigig, not remembering that you made a neder, a Shavuot, but you didn't remember in between. You were totally oblivious. You ate the kazayis from each one. Chayiv shtayim. You're chayiv two chatois. Now we all know when it comes to, let's say, the issur of eating chaylev. What if you forget that this is chaylev, right? So it's a shoygig, and you ate a kazayis, and then 10 minutes later you ate another kazayis, and then you became aware that this was chaylev. You're only mechuyev one chatos, because the halach is ochal shnei zeis chatois. The helam echad, you didn't remember in between. That's called one violation. By Shavuot, in this exact same scenario, you would bring two chatois. Kidetanan lekamon, like we're going to learn later in the Mishnah. Shavuot shelo oichel pas chitin, pas sa'orin. Hopefully we'll learn that today even. Shavuot shelo oichel pas chitin, pas sa'orin, pas kusman, ve'ochal, and he ate behelam echad, chayiv al kol achas v'achas. He's chayiv a separate carbon for each one of these. Umaysinu laboratories kanim. How do we know this halacha? That Shavuos is unique from any other isser. Every other isser, no matter how much of the isser you ate behelam echad, it's only one chiyuv chatos. It triggers only one chiyuv chatos. But by Shavuot, every single kikar that he eats, or the kazayis of every kikar that he eats, will trigger another chiyuv chatos, even though it's behelam echad. How do we know that from? It's from the following pasuk. It says, "V'haya ki yeshem le'achas me'ela." That teaches us lechayvoy al kol achas v'achas. It says if you do any one of these averos, if you do any of these averos, you bring one chatos. So the mashmois of the pasuk is that you could bring one chatos for. I'm sorry, forget ki yeshem le'achas me'ela. You for every single violation, you have to bring a separate chatos. Don't forget from what I said. For any one of these, you're going to be mechuyev a carbon l'chayv kol achas v'achas. So there's a special gilui that you bring a separate chatos in relation to Shavuot. V'chi amar nami mizu imizu. If he said that I'm not going to eat. I make a shvua that I'm not going to eat mizu umizu. So there was. I didn't say I'm swearing that I shouldn't eat from A, and I'm swearing that I shouldn't eat from B. There are two separate shvuas. There it's easier to understand why they would bring two chatois. But here he said, I swear I'm not going to eat from A and B. That's one shvua. Nevertheless, shtei shavuos chashivi. We consider it two shvuos, and from each one, for each violation, you bring a separate carbon, even though there was no yediyah bein time, it was behelamech, which is not typical for a normal carbon chatas. Hilchach, since shavua is so unique, he achol mizu chatisir umizu chatisir a mitzarfus. Since we're saying they're two separate things, legabe be mechayev tu chatois. On the flip side of the coin, lekula, since it's two separate violations, we do not say that they're mitzaref. So if you ate a half a share of each one, you would not bring a carbon chatas. But kainamos aren't special like shvua, and we don't have a special gili in the pasuk that there's a separate carbon for each violation. Ein chalukas lashonos leman da'amar yesh meila b'kainamos. If you hold yesh meila b'kainamos, there's actually a shiloh to say that something that you asserted upon yourself with a nether actually takes on the din of hektish. And if you violate that nether, you actually have to bring an neshama ilos just as if you had a no from Vedek Abayis. So avokainomis ein chalukas lashonos leman da'amar yesh meila b'kainamos. It's only relevant if there's a carbon brought. So if you hold yesh meila b'kainamos, you would bring a carbon for violation of kainamos, but they're not chalukas. Meaning the nehenna, the chazav and nehenna, behelamecha, if not remembering that you made this nether, you had a no multiple times, chadu hu mechayev, or hud in hektish, if you were nehenna from hektish, and then you were nehenna again and again, but it was all behelamechad, chadu hu mechayev, you'd only be mechuyev one carbon, the kulu chado meila. It's all one meila. Kidetnan, sirv esem meila l'zman meruba. The halacha is, if I didn't have a shava pruta of a no, from hektish one shot, but I had a little bit of a no at a time until it reached the shear of a shava pruta, there'd be a chiyuv. But the imishnei alamis, but if you remembered in between, then afilu mechada mina yunami, then each one you bring carbon. V'chein linin malchus, the same svara would apply linin malchus. In basra achas chada hudalaki. If there was one asra, when it comes to kainamos, he would only get one malchus. The ibishnei asrais. But if there were two asrais, afilu mechada minayu. So you have one kikar. If you ate a kazais of that kikar, if they warned you don't eat it, or else you're going to get malchus, you ate a kazais of that kikar, you got malchus. If you did it again and they warned you again you'll bring it. So for the same kikar, you can have multiple malchus. Shari over v'chayzer over. Every time they warn him, it's a new violation. If a Nazir was drinking wine all day long, he only gets one malchus. But but if before each sip they gave him a new hasra, and nevertheless he's drinking after receiving each hasra, so we have a long-winded Rashi, but to simplify what he said, because and therefore every single kazayis that someone eats is a violation in and of itself and would have a separate chiyuv carbon. So since shavuos are separate that way, therefore they're not mitzaref either. But all other yisurim such as kainamos would be mitzaref. So going back to our Pinchas on the second white line, Amar Pinchas, shiny shvus mitoich shechalukos l'chatois ein mitzarfus. Now this is a chiddush of our Pinchas. Not everybody necessarily holds that by shvua you should bring two chatois if you had two violations behelam echad. It's only a chiddush that's shared with us by our Pinchas. Frag the Gemara, if we hold like our Pinchas that shvuos mitoch shechalukos l'chatois ein mitzarfus, yachi, what did your mayor say in this brisa we just quoted? We were busy with understanding the sheet of the Rabbanon. But what did the mayor say? The mayor said, kainamos are kishvuos, and by kainamos as well, they are not going to be mitzaref. Frank the Gemara, Why would Reb Meir say Kainomois has the same din as Shavuos? Shavuos has a special halacha, as Rav Pinchas told us. B'shlemis Shavuos, hoil v'chalukas l'chatois, I understand why you can't be mitzaref, because they're chaluk l'chatois. Ela Kainomois, am I like? There's no reason to apply that same principle to Kainomois, because the Kainomois doesn't have that halacha. Kainomois, if you had multiple violations, you only would bring one carbon. So it's one thing. So how could Reb Meir apply this principle of Shavuos to Kainomois as well? Zok Gemara, you're 100% right. Epoch, we're going to have to change what Reb Meir's halacha was. And rather than Reb Meir saying Kainomois should have the din of Shavuos, and we had our kasha, why? Shavuos are unique. The Torah's Magal is special by Shavuos, that you bring multiple chatois. Rather, Reb Meir said Shavuos ki Kainomois. Fakert, that Shavuos are also mitzarav just like Kainomois. What about the special status of a Shavuos? The less lay there of Pinchas, and Reb Meir doesn't hold like a Pinchas. So the machlekes Reb Meir and the Chachamim in this brisa would be whether or not we hold like a Pinchas. Do Shavuos have a special din that they're separated le'inyan chatois? That is the first way the Gemara explains this brisa, so that it shouldn't be a kasha on Rav Papa. So let's go back to Rav Papa and see what the kasha was. Amar Rav Papa, machlokes in our Mishnah between Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim is dafke b'shvuos, but by kainama is divrei hakol b'kol. The problem is the brisa. If you look at the Chachamim, say that two kainamas are mitzaref. The question is, according to Rav Papa, that by kainama is divrei hakol b'kol. Why do you need any type of tziruf by shnei kainamas? Right, that was the kasha that we originally asked. So the Gemara ended up saying it was when you said achilu mishtayim alai. But Ravina has a different shot. Ravina Amar, there's no kasha at all from the brayso to begin with, because Kika Amar of Papa, you know what Rav Papa said? Machloikish b'shvuos avol b'kainamis divrei hakol b'kolshu. That's leaning malchus. That's if you bemazed ate a mashahu from something that you ashered upon yourself with a koinim, you will get malchus. The Mishnah, the brayso that we quoted, where you need tziruf for kainamos, that's not talking about malchus. Hitanya ahi le'inyan karban deba'inan shava pruta. What the brayso was talking about, when the brayso said that two kainamos could be mitzaref, that's legabe karban. If you hold that yesh mila b'kainamos, and if you violate a kainim, you bring a karban. You could bring a karban even if you are mitzaref the shir shavapruta, because when you're bringing an asham me'ilos, it's not based on the shir achila, it's based on the shir shavapruta. So you could be mitzaref the shir shavapruta from two different kikaris. But when it comes to malchus avada, you got malchus even for a mashu. Zok to Gemara. So based on the way Ravina is understanding the brisa, remember the sofer abonin yesh mila b'kainamis. If you're going to say that the brisa is talking in carbon, that means obviously the chachamim hold you bring the carbon, and they're discussing the parameters when you bring the carbon. But you're telling me that when someone violates a kainim, he would bring a carbon. Vatanya, I'm going to show you otherwise. If someone said hikar zu hektish, and then va'achla, and he ate it, or menu ben chaveroi, or if a friend ate it, ma, because this is now bedek abayis, that's kedusha, and anyone who will benefit from it will be over the isra meila. The balters and isra meila to everybody, meaning it's because it belongs to hektish. Lefichach yesh lapidyon. Therefore, you could redeem it from hektish, and then it goes l'chulin. As Rashi says, v'yesh lapidyon. If you want to make a pidyon and say the kedusha from this kikar should go onto this dollar bill or this gold coin, it will work, and the kedusha will leave the kikar. There's a pasuk that says you could redeem hektish. But what if someone said kikar zu alai hektish? It's only hektish to me. It's not hektish for somebody else. So then it's hu mo'al kaveri mo'al. Therefore, only he's mo'al, because he's only giving it a kedusha related to himself. He's not giving it a kedusha related to somebody else, and therefore lefichach ein la pidyon divrei. Therefore, you can't be pointed, which are the words of Reb Meir, as Rashi says ein la pidyon la tirloi. you could not be pointed for yourself. Shall I never pigeon be suing? If you're making something hektish, and that's why it's also for people to have enough from it, that's a din hektish. A din hektish, you could be pointed. But if you say it's only hektish to me, that's not Pateris hektish. That's an isser like hektish. But an isser is not something that you could redeem. Mois hektish is something that you could redeem. Diver Reb Meir, those are the words of Reb Meir. We're focusing on the Chachamim. And the kash is going to be, how could you say the Chacham hold yesh mila b'kanamais, the Chacham hold ein mila b'kanamais? So let's see what the Chacham say on the base. The Chachamim moimrim, bein hu, ubein chaveroi, loimoa. Even if you made it, b'koinim, if you answered something b'koinim, then bein hu, ubein chaveroi, loimoa, there's never a din meila. Why? Lefi she'ein meila b'kanamais. So the Chachamim came right out and said black and white, ein meila b'kanamais. If it's ein meila b'kanamais, how could you, Ravina, explain the earlier brisa that talks about sirif leading kanamais, that it's sirif leading bring the carbon? You never bring a carbon, no matter what. So that's not relevant either. Zoktamar, I can fix that easily. Epach, in this last brisa that we just learned, let's swap the Chachamim and Reb Meir. Epach, echad zeh ve'echad zeh leimal, levi she'ein meila b'kanamais, the Reb Meir, v'Chachamim maimrim, hu ma v'chaverei loima. So the Chachamim do all this really. See how easy it is to answer a kasha? All you do is flip two names and the problem evaporates. So what we're saying is that the shita that we just quoted, the Lefisha Ein Mil B'Kanamais, is in fact not attributed to the Chachamim, it's attributed to Reb Meir. The Chachamim hold Yesh Mil B'Kanamais, and therefore we can explain the brisa that we asked the kasha on Reb Papa from, that it's not speaking L'gabe Malchus, it's speaking L'gabe bringing a carbon. Correct the Gemara, but now we're going to have a problem with Reb Meir, because now you're saying Reb Meir holds Ein Mil B'Kanamais. Correct the Gemara, Ihachi, Reb Meir, Omer, Kanamish Keshvuos. We had the first brisa we started with, where Reb Meir said Kanamish are Keshvuos, meaning that they're not mitzaref. Zokt the Gemara, let's analyze what Reb Meir means. Ela Kanamish, it's tarufi hu deloy mitzarfi. All Reb Meir said was Kanamish Keshvuos, meaning they won't be mitzaref. But Hameila ispu, but they do have meila. They're just not mitzaref, right? Isn't that exactly how Ravina is explaining the machlokes between Reb Meir and the Chachamim, whether or not it's mitzaref or not? So Zok to Gemara, it's clear that it's only a shaila of tziruf, but it's not a shaila of meila. It's mashra there is meila. The Amar Reb Meir, you just flip things around, and you're claiming that Reb Meir holds ein meila b'kainamais klal. So what does Reb Meir mean to say that kainamais are keshvuos and they're not mitzaref? How is tziruf relevant? If the whole discussion is tziruf le'in a chi of carbon, and Reb Meir holds there never is a chi of carbon for kainamais, this whole comment doesn't make sense. Zok Gemara l'devreim d'Rabbanan karmelu. Really, according to Reb Meir, tziruf is not necessary because it's not relevant, because there's no carbon. But he was saying, even you Rabbanan who hold yesh meila, there's no tzira. So the Rabbanan karmelu lididi, according to me, who holds ein meila b'kinamis klal. So therefore, tzira, this whole thing is not relevant because there's no carbon at all. But lidid, according to you Chachamim, who hold that yesh meila b'kinamis, oidu li mias the kainamos keshvuos. At least agree to me that kainamos are keshvuos and kainamos won't be mitzaref, just like shvuos are not mitzaref. Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan said you can't compare kainamos to shvuos. Shvuos ikadera pinchas, that separates everything, and kainamos lakadera pinchas. Rav Pinchas never said the halacha by kainamos to separate chatois for each kazayasi. Gewalt. Amarava. What if someone said shavua shalocha and he ate earth? Now, is eating earth considered achila? Zokrava potter, he would be potter, because that's not called achila. Earth is something that's not edible. That's right. It's a very hadam, not pri hadam. Right. I'm sorry. The previous Gemara was quoting this Gemara, the next step. Boy Rava, Shavua shaloi oichal ofar. If someone swore that he won't eat offer. Now, Rava's first halacha was He never mentioned the offer in the Shavuos. He says, I swear I won't eat. If you swear you won't eat, eating offer doesn't count as a violation. But what if you swore that you won't eat offer? There, you cannot eat offer. So the shaila was bekama, right? That was the shaila we put on. How much offer do you have to eat? Since it's not normal to eat offer, maybe even the mash will be offer. So here's the shaila. Kivan the omar shaloi oichel daito yakizayis. Since he used the word achila in reference to offer, even though the word achila doesn't pass for offer is not achila, but he expressed it with the wording of achila. So that means he wants to answer himself only from eating a kazayis. But if he ate a mashu, he's not answering that for himself. Oidilma, even the lav midi the achli inshihu, since lamaisa we don't care what he said. This is something that's not food item. It's not edible. Therefore, b'cholshu is b'ashu b'cholshu everything more take. This is the shaila that the Gemara quoted earlier, right? The Gemara said that when the Gemara said, I offer you would be chayiv even if you ate less than a shear. The Gemara said, if you're making that assumption, then you're being pushed at Rava shaila, and Rava wasn't sure about it. Boy, Rava is another shaila. Shavuos shelo oichel charta. A person said, I'm not going to have the seed of a grape. Bikamo. How much of the grape does he have to eat in order to violate the shvua? Do you say kivan the misachal al yidei tarubas? Normally, when you eat a charton, you're eating it as part of a grape. You're popping a grape into your mouth that has a charton inside it. So the normal way to eat a charton is by popping a grape into your mouth. Even the misachal al yidei tarubas daite kazayis. Did that ever happen to you? So to Gemara, even the misachal ayidei taruvos daite kazayis. Since normally when you eat a charchin, you eat it with other things, and therefore he meant a kazayis worth. Oidilma even the loy beinei achlilei inchi. Since you don't eat it be'en because it's part of a fruit, daite amashu. Maybe his das is even to prohibit himself from eating a mashu, and on that the Gemara says take it. Let's see Rashi. Daite kazayis ve'ein kan shavua. I'm sorry. Let's look at Rashi. Al yidei taruvos im hanov. We normally eat it with grapes. Daite mashu im timtzaloymar offer b'mashu. So Rashi now opened our eyes up to understanding the shaila, and Rashi says this whole shaila that Rav is clearing by a charchin is if you hold that offer is a mashu, because since offer is not midi achila, therefore it's also even with a mashu. If someone said charchin, which is also normally not eaten by itself, maybe that will also be a mashu. So the Gemara take it. Boy Ravashi. Now we're upping the ante. Nazir she'amar shvua shelo eichel charchin. What's the difference if it's a nazir? The thing about a nazir is already mushba v'oimid not to eat a charchin. A nazir is not allowed to eat mechartan and ba'adazad. So therefore, can you make a shavua? Will it be chal on something that's already usher to you? Tosfos tells us that this shaila could equally have been, what if you swore not to eat chaylev and you ate chaylev? The only reason why it chaps on a nazir is because we were just talking about a nazir. But really, the shaila of Rava is, can you make a shvua to asher something that's already asher to you? So, boy Ravashi, nazir she'amar shvua shelo yochel charton v'kama. How much of this charton does he have to eat? The kibun to kazayis isur dairaisahu. Since to eat a kazayis worth of charton is already asher to him before his shvua, because he's a nazir. So if he's making a shvua, he must try to be creating a greater prohibition. So ki kamishtaba ahater kamishtaba. He wants to say even what's not outlawed to me, what's not prohibited to me, due to my naziris, I want to aser on myself with the shvua, and therefore v'daita yamashu. And the same with chaylev, right? The Torah only asers a kazayis of chaylev. If you ate a mashu of chaylev, that wouldn't be prohibited. So that's what his kavanah is. Dilma, even the amar shaloi oichel, since he used the word shaloi oichel, daite kazayis, and therefore the shvua won't be chal at all, because the shvua can't be chal on something that's already aser to him. As Rashi says, Nazir she'amar shvua shaloi oichel charton bekama. Im tim tzaloimer b'shar kol adam b'kazayis by a regular person who says Chartzin Tzekazayis, which was our earlier Shaila, Nozer who's prohibited my, Mi Amrinon Kivin Tzekazayis Osir Alei, V'yoidea who she'en Shavuot Chalalov. He knows he can't once again Asher Kazayis, because that's already Mushba because he's a Nazir. So Ki Ishtaba Tereshtaba, he must be trying to Asher even more. Al Pachas Mikazayis, Shalohoya Mushba Love Mi Sinai. Or no, maybe Achila means Kazayis, that the Kazayis, and the Ein Kan Shvua, and the Shvua is bottle and God. Zoktamar Toshma, let's see if we could bring a raya. Shavua Shaloi Oichel, he made a Shavua that he will not eat at all. V'yochel Nevelois, Utrevois Shkotzim U'Ramoshim, we had this earlier. Chayiv, he's going to be Chayiv. Rab Shimon Poiter. And we asked a question on this Machlok. Vavinaba, am I Chayiv? Why do Chachamim say you're Chayiv for violating your Shavua by eating Nevelos, Utrevois Shkotzim U'Ramoshim? Your Shavua should never have been Chal. Why? Because Mush B'Vayim is Mehar Sinaihu. How could your Shavua be Chal on something that you're already prohibited to eat? And what did the Gemara answer? This is a chazor of what we learned yesterday. Rav Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan in the Amri b'koilel devarim hamutarim devar marasurim. You know why his shvu is chal on the shkotzim u'ramoshim? Because it's also chal on apples and oranges. He made a shvu that he won't eat anything. So if you bought the shvu is chal on everything, it's chal on this as well. Now that's only if you subscribe to Isser Koilel. Not everybody agrees that this would allow Isser Chal Isser. But Rabbi Yochanan holds the Isser Koilel Isser Chal Isser. Rish Lakish says no, that wouldn't work. So the Shavuot would not be valid unless Omar Iyata Moitze, you will not be able to find a way for his Isser Shavuot to be chal on the Isser of Trefus and Shkotzim U'Ramoshim Ela Ibim Afarish Chatzishir V'Alibid Rabbanim. Either according to the Rabbanim in our Mishnah, who holds that unless you speak out, I'm answering even a Pachas Mikashir, it's only going to be a Kazayis. So if he spoke out a Chatzishir, then it would fit him perfectly. Because a chatzishir isn't answered. A chatzishir isn't answered by the Torah. It's only a shir. So he's adding to the isser by even prohibiting less than a shir. Or ibistam v'alibid Rabbi Kiva, because in our Mishnah, Rabbi Kiva said automatically when someone uses a lashon shvu shlo yochel, he means even a mashu. So Amar Adam Oyser Atzamay b'kolshu. Break the Gemara. V'nevela. The mushba v'oimid ma'arsinahu, nevela to a Yisrael is no different to kichatzin l'gabi nazadam, who's also mushba oimid. The time of the parish. The only reason why we're saying, according to the Rabbanan, it would be chal the iser is if you spoke out beferish that I want the iser to be even on less than this year. Haloi parish, but if he didn't speak that out, daite akazayis. Surely his das is a kazayis, even though this shvul wouldn't be chal, because a nisr chal lisr. So Shema Mina, you have a raya from here, in fact, that when someone says, a nozer says, I want to prohibit myself from eating a chartzon, it does not mean a mashu by default unless he speaks out that it means a mashu, similar to the case in our Mishnah. Ella, oibazai tivshait the boy Rava. So therefore, we should be able to be poished the following shaila that Rava cleared. Shavuos shaloi oichel ofar bekama. Right? That was the shaila we discussed today. We had it earlier, as Dubi mentioned. Someone swore that they only had ofar, and we wanted to know, is he answering himself on the mashu or only on the kazayas? Tivshait, let's be poished. The ad ika kazayas. His default automatically only means a kazayas. Why should I say that? The nevela ka'oferdam. Nevela is like offer. You're not allowed to eat it, right? And nevertheless, we don't say it automatically means a mashu. Davka the time of the parish. Davka if you speak out a mashu, will it be usher even in a mashu? Haloi parish. But if you didn't speak out a mashu, daite kazayas, right? That's what the Gemara just concluded. So offer should be no different. I'm sorry. I understand, but it's not edible to you, just like the nevela is not edible to you. Gemara answers exactly what Dubi says. Offer lav bar achilu hu klal, right? It's not a bar achilu at all. So therefore, there it's more logical to say that even a mashu is going to be asur. But nevela, bas achila, a nevela is a piece of meat. It's edible. It's merely va'ari hu the ravia iluya. there's a lion sitting on it that's not letting me get to it. In this case, the lion is the Torah. The Torah is saying, this is food, but we don't let you eat it. So there you automatically would have das for kazayas. But offer, it's not food at all, as Dovi mentioned, that's mistaber to say that it might be also even in a mash. Now we have a little bit of a problem that's a very yisoidistic problem, to very yisoidistic problem in Shas. What did we just say here? We just said here, Rabbi Yochanan holds, how could you aser yourself with the Isra Achila for Nevelos? You're mushma v'oimid. So Rabbi Yochanan said it's because we have Isra Kailah, right? Now, Rish Lakish said, I don't agree with Isra Kailah. The only way it'll work is if you're going to be asking yourself less than a shear. Because less than a shear, there is no prohibition. The Torah is only asking a shear. If you ask for less than a shear, that's the Torah is not prohibited. Right? That's what Rish Lakish said. Freit Tosfos. Atera Kamishtaba. If you're swearing Atera means you're swearing even on less than a shear. Zogt Freit Tosfos Akasha. Afidu Rabbi Yochanan the Amar Chatzi Shir Asum Natayra. Rabbi Yochanan said that if you eat less than the share of nevela, you're right. You don't get malchus until you eat a kazayas. But if you eat a mashu, it's a deraisa. Rabbi Yochanan is saying it's also midaraisa to eat even a mashu of nevela. Yeah, you don't get malchus until you hit the threshold of kazayas. But it's also in the Torah. So how could you tell me if you're swearing that I mean to ask myself even from eating a mashu of the nevela? And that my shvu will be chal because there's no isur in the Torah, but there is an isur in the Torah because chatzi shir is also in the Torah. That is the kasha of Tosfos. Chatzi shir also in the Torah. Asya bayid Rav Ashi. Zaktimar filu Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Ashi's shaila would make sense because who asked the shaila in the first place? It was Rav Ashi. It still fits according to Rav Ashi. The mistama. Rabbi Yochanan Svirle, probably Rabbi Ashi holds like Rabbi Yochanan because the kaim alone kavosei. We paskin like Rabbi Yochanan halacha l'maisa that the chatzi shir is awesome in the Torah. It's awesome with deraisa to even eat a mashu of chaylev, even a mashu of nevela. It's also with deraisa, even though there's no malchus for it. The hainu taima. So what is this for? The kivan deleka ela isura ba'alma loy chashav lei mush bevoimid. That's a huge chiddush. Even though it's also to eat midaraisa, but if there's no oynish for it, it doesn't count as mushba v'oimid, and you could still make a shvuah. Inami, or you could say Rabbi Yochanan and Farish ahetera kamashtaba. You could say according to Rabbi Yochanan, he is swearing on heter. What does that mean? How is it heter? If you ate it shaloi keder chanasoi, there the Torah doesn't prohibit that at all. The Torah's prohibition on a mashu is eating it keder chanasa. But akalpanim, it's important to mention, it's a huge chiddush that even though chatzi shir is also in the Torah and it's an issue deraisa, legabe a neder or a shvuah bin chal on it, that's not a problem because it's a different type of isser, I guess, if there's a chi of carbon and chi of malchus or not. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. Shvuah shaloi oichel v'ochal v'shasa ein chai v'lachas. You're only chayiv one. You said ochal, so you won't get an extra chiyuv for the shasa. But what if you said shvuah shelo ochal v'shelo eshta? So he made two shvuos, v'ochal v'shasa. So now he violated two shvuos, chayiv shtay. What if he said shvuah shelo ochal and he ate v'ochal paschitin, upas oirin, upas kusmin? He ate many different types of foods. Again, in a chayiv alachas because it's all one big shvuah. But if he said a separate shvuah for each item, shvuah shaloi oichel paschitin, pas oirin, pas kusmin. So he itemized in the shvuah each one individually, the ochel, and he ate each one individually. Chayiv al kol achas v'achas. Rashi speaks out. The chiddush of this is you might think the reason why I'm speaking at all these is because I'm trying to say these are the only type of achilas that I'm trying to prohibit for myself. But all other achilas I want to allow. But not that he really wants to make a separate shvuah for each one.
Or you say when the lower field is done, you say it's for a specific time, but you specify a certain food for the first time.
Not necessarily.
Forever.
It could be forever. Yeah.
Is it forever, or?
Yeah. These cases are forever. Zokdamar shvuah shaloi eshta v'shasa mashkin harbi. He made a shvua, I won't drink, and he drank a lot of mashkin. Again, in the chayv alachas. But shvua shalayesh to yayin, v'shemen, udvash, v'shosa, then chayv al kol achas v'achas. So basically, this is a parallel case to the case of Achila. How about shvua shalay oichel? He swore that he wouldn't eat. V'achal oichlin she'einen ruin lachila. He ate food that's not royal achila. V'shasa mashkin she'einen ruin l'shtia. Then it's potter because his shvu was not to eat. Shvu shaloi oichel yochel nevelos utreifa shkatzim u'remoshim chayiv. Reb Shimon Poiter, the Gemara already explained it twice in the last 2 days. What's shot of this Gemara? What if he said Amar koinim ishti nehenesli? He said it's also for my wife. I think he's answering that he's not allowed to have from his wife, right? He said he's not allowed to have from his wife. If I ate today, if I broke my diet today, then I'm not allowed to have enough for my wife. Is that called triggering the Isser? Because he didn't eat something that he wanted to eat. Sorry? His wife is also. So it means she's not allowed to have enough from him? Okay, let's see Rashi. Ishto Yasura, Shari Achaloiklin, he ate food. I feel the Reb Shimon the Potter become Isa, even Reb Shimon who held in the early case was Potter, time alav mishum the lav b'nei achila. It's not because it's not b'nei achila. Rather, it's in shvu achala al dvar mitzvah kid l'kamam. But here, as a trigger, he ate and therefore he triggered it. Should we stop here?